maybe I will record this kind of videos and maybe upload to my account, YouTube account maybe, kind of things.
I think that's a great way for people to learn, especially so like I know the kind of videos you mean, like where it'll kind of give an idiom and then an explanation.
Right.
And I think that's helpful for certain levels. It just depends what somebody's weaknesses are and what they want to strengthen. Some different things that I've seen people do are like, so there's different sitcoms. There's an older one called, I don't know if you know Friends. And so what a lot of people will do,
I know that
is
old one, right?
Yeah.
Old drama.
So you can play it and put the subs on, and then with the subtitles you can do something called ghosting, to where you try to speak along with it, and then you can slow it down and try to speak along with it, and it kind of helps with the fluidity of speaking. But a lot of times, there are times that some of those videos where they'll explain idioms are helpful, because sometimes like an idiom needs a longer explanation to it. But yeah, so at a certain level, it helps to move beyond just picking up vocabulary and starting a conversation.
Yeah. So you recommend that Friends?
Yeah, Friends is a great one, because there's so much daily English that's in that show.
Do you recommend the other things? So, because some people think, Friends is good, but that is a little bit also maybe some expressions were changed.
I think you'll lose probably some of the newer idioms, but like really daily speech, it's still pretty modern. The show's probably about ended probably about 15 years ago, I think. So I think if you're pairing something like Friends with watching videos on the idioms, like they'll just take little clips. One of the shows that I see a lot in Korea on YouTube is there's like these 3 cartoon bears. I never saw this in America. It must have come out after I left. With the Bears. And so a lot of people watch this show. And I've watched a few episodes of it, and I think that's pretty good. And it's, pretty simple and straightforward. But I wouldn't recommend it necessarily every sitcom, because depending on the writer of the sitcom, it's not necessarily like we speak like that all the time. That's why I think Friends is recommended to a lot of people, because it's casual, and they're always with friends, like their own friends, versus like you might have some sort of sitcom about the president or something like that. That's not going to be the kind of English that we're using day in, day out, like or like Breaking Bad or something, like so any sitcom where they're in like normal day-to-day situations. Seinfeld, it's another old one, but that one will probably work. But that would probably be my recommendation.
So did you use that for your students in Taiwan?
I did with some of the older students. We did some episodes of Friends. Usually though in Taiwan, we had more of a curriculum where I was working out of a book, or when I was teaching adults, I was specifically working on things like the TOEIC exam. And so it kind of made me cynical about some of those tests, like the TOEIC, because we were able to teach our students how to get better grades on the TOEIC without necessarily improving their English level. And so those tests don't always... That is the one thing that I would say to students out here who are learning English. Do not base your self-confidence about your English on these test scores. Because I have met people with extremely high TOEIC scores, and it's hard to carry a conversation with them. And I've met people with very low TOEIC scores but who could speak conversationally just fine.
That's good.
It really comes down to how well can you talk to another person, because that's what's language. That's what language is, right?
That's what people want.
Yeah, that's what people want. You know, nobody cares if you know an obscure definition to some word that you know people aren't using very much. You know, can you talk to the guy on the bus?
Yeah.
Ask him about his day, see how he's feeling. And so, yeah, it's just getting out and talking to people is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be nervous to approach foreigners. A lot of times when foreigners are in your country, you know, unless somebody's having some ridiculous bad day or they're a really weird guy, you know, most people are excited to talk to, you know, locals, to hear from Koreans about their life. And, you know, a lot of foreigners, they've been away. They don't get to talk to people all day.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially in the States, it's very normal just to talk to random people. You might be on the bus with somebody and have a conversation for like an hour.
Right.
And so we don't really get that connection a lot of times because we're away from home. So somebody, you know, coming up to us, you know, we're not judging their English. Most of us can't speak Korean, so there's nowhere to judge. I mean, there are some foreigners who speak really good Korean. I don't want to speak for everybody, but there's definitely no judgment there. You know, you're approaching us, you know, that's a really good thing, I think.
That's all.
Yeah. So I really enjoy when people, you know, stop by to talk.
Yeah. So have you ever tried to Korean? This kind of things?
I'm a little bit nervous because my Korean is so limited. In Taiwan, I would approach people occasionally. Where I lived, there weren't really any other foreigners. And so if I needed, you know, if I had a conversation with somebody in a few days, like over Skype or Facebook, you know, after a while, you're like, you know what, I need to talk to somebody. So I would go out. But on campus, where I live, at the IGC, all the Koreans who live there, they speak pretty good English.
Yes.
Usually when they come in as freshmen, they're super nervous to talk to the foreigners.
Yeah,
But
right.
that breaks down after a few weeks when they realize, like, we're not going to bite. And, you know, it's super easy.
Yes, right.
And so then you know, everything goes really good. So I talk with my classmates who are Korean all day. So on campus, it's easy just to have English conversations.
That's awesome.
But when I improve with my Korean, then I will definitely, because they say that, like, when you're learning a language, you have to basically make X amount of mistakes before you begin to improve.
Yeah.
Now, if you are really cautious about talking with people, you still have to make those mistakes at some point, but you're going to make them slower. Versus if you get out and just communicate with as many people as you can, you make those mistakes much quicker, but you improve much quicker.
Right.
And so once I get a little bit more of a solid foundation in Korean, of course, I'm going to go out and talk to as many people as I can. Yeah.
That's
Just because people crave human attention, you know, that connection.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of part of the culture. You know?
Yes, right.
You know, a stranger could be a friend, you know, or they might need help. Like, you know, a lot of times I used to go for really long walks and people would stop all the time to ask if I needed a ride, so it was just really friendly. I know that's a little more dangerous in a bigger city, but out where I was, it was all right. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's good. Don't be so nervous to approach people. Especially, I think in Korea, a lot of Koreans keep a little bit more to themselves, a little bit more private. It's just the impression that I get.
Yes.
Especially like riding the subway, you can see how people interact with each other. But like to approach a foreigner that really won't, we might be a little shocked at first just because nobody has approached us in a while. But that's not like, why are you approaching me? It's, yeah, usually we'll have a good conversation with you and enjoy it. So, yeah, just like you pulling in here, like,
right.
Yeah, so it's no problem to stop for a minute and have a chat, or, you know, if somebody's on their way, they'll still say, hey, you know, have a good day, or whatever. So, and that's a great way. And a lot of it is just, you eventually break down your own, you know, apprehension and nervousness of approaching people. And you do that enough times, it goes away. You see there's nothing really to lose. Like, there's no like, haha, you didn't know such and such word. I mean, you're speaking an entirely another language. It's impressive in and of its own. So, especially us living here trying to learn Korean, I think everybody's conscious of how difficult that is to learn each other's language.
Yes, right.
So, yeah, so if anybody's thinking, you know, that's just too scary to do, like, just don't worry about it. Yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing I always told my students, you know, just get out and talk to as many people as you can. A lot of times going on the internet is a great place, even just chatting with random people on the internet.
But there's a limitation, right?
Yeah, there's still limitations, especially with, you know, chatting, but anytime you're in public, feel free to approach somebody, you know. I mean, obviously, if somebody's eating and they're talking to their family, it might not be as easy. But a lot of times, you know, even if it's a group of friends, you approach them, they may say, hey, sit down with us, you know.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's just a kind of a great way to
awesome.
To get out of your shell and go with what you're comfortable with, too.
Yeah, that's what I want to.
Yeah.
So I can improve my English as well.
Yeah. It'll open doors for you, and, you know, I think your English is pretty good.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
And